Rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Marcus Chen's penthouse office, each droplet a tiny percussion against the glass that separated him from the rest of Manhattan. At 33, he stood at the apex of the tech world, his artificial intelligence company valued at $12 billion. Forbes had called him the man who couldn't fail. Wall Street Journal dubbed him the future of innovation. But tonight, as Marcus loosened his Italian silk tie and poured himself another scotch, he felt nothing but the familiar emptiness that had become his constant companion. His phone buzzed with the 100th notification of the day. Another merger. Another acquisition. Another zero added to his net worth. He swiped it away without reading. "Mr. Chen?" His assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "Your car is ready. It's getting late." Marcus glanced at his Patek Philippe watch. 11:47 p.m. Late even by his standards. "I'll be down in 10 minutes. He gathered his things mechanically, his mind already racing through tomorrow's board meeting, the Tokyo conference call at 6 a.m., the Senate testimony about AI regulation next week. His life was a carefully orchestrated symphony of success, each note played to perfection, each measure calculated for maximum impact. What no one knew, what Marcus barely admitted to himself, was that he was running. Running from a past he'd spent 15 years trying to forget. Running from the memory of a childhood spent in poverty, watching his mother work 3 jobs just to keep their lights on. Running from the shame of wearing the same clothes to school for weeks, of eating ketchup packets for lunch, of being the kid everyone pitied. He'd built his empire on a simple promise: never be vulnerable again. Never need anyone. Never let emotions cloud judgment. It had worked brilliantly. He'd graduated from MIT at 20, sold his first startup at 23, and built Chen Technologies into a giant by 30. Along the way, he'd learned to keep people at arm's length. Employees were assets. Business partners were chess pieces. Relationships were transactions. Even his own family had become strangers. His mother, now living comfortably in a paid-off house in Queens, called every Sunday. He answered maybe once a month, the conversation stilted and brief. She tried to tell him that money wasn't everything, that he was losing himself. He'd bought her a car instead of listening. The penthouse elevator descended silently, carrying Marcus down 57 floors to the parking garage. His driver, James, stood waiting by the Bentley, umbrella in hand. "Rough night, sir?" James asked, noting Marcus's drawn expression. "They're all rough, James." Marcus slid into the back seat, immediately opening his laptop. Work was the only thing that quieted his mind. As they pulled into Manhattan traffic, Marcus barely noticed the city, lights blurring past. He was reviewing quarterly projections when James spoke again. "Sir, I wanted to mention, Elena won't be in tomorrow. Her daughter's been sick." Marcus looked up, momentarily confused. "Elena?" "Your housekeeper, sir. She's worked for you for almost 2 years now." Had it been 2 years? Marcus realized with a start that he couldn't picture her face. She was simply the person who kept his 3-story brownstone immaculate, who restocked his refrigerator, who somehow made his house function while remaining completely invisible to him. That's fine. Whatever she needs. He returned to his laptop, dismissing the conversation. But something nagged at him. A daughter. Sick. He'd approved Elena's employment contract, of course, but had never asked about her life, her story, her struggles. She was just another employee, another line item in his extensive household budget. The Bentley pulled up to his Upper East Side brownstone, the historic building looking almost severe in the rain. Marcus barely remembered buying it. His real estate agent had handled everything. It was simply the address that matched his status. "Good night, sir," James said, holding the umbrella as Marcus stepped out. Inside, The house was dark and silent. No warmth, no life. Just expensive furniture and carefully curated art that a decorator had chosen. Marcus climbed the stairs to his bedroom, past the guest rooms that had never hosted guests, past the home office he never used because he was always at work, past the library filled with books he'd never read. He stood in his bedroom, looking at his reflection in the mirror. The man staring back wore a $5,000 suit, but his eyes were hollow. When had he become this? When had success replaced everything else? Sleep came fitfully, as it always did. In his dreams, he was a child again, watching his mother cry over an eviction notice. He was 13, standing in the principal's office after getting into a fight with kids who'd mocked his thrift store clothes. He was 22, giving his MIT commencement speech and scanning the crowd for his father's face, knowing he wouldn't find it because his father had abandoned them when Marcus was 5. He woke at 4:30 a.m., as always, and prepared for another day in his carefully constructed fortress of achievement. What Marcus didn't know was that his fortress was about to crack. That in a modest apartment in Queens, a 28-year-old woman named Elena Martinez was sitting by her daughter's bedside, watching the little girl's fever finally break after 3 terrifying days. That Elena, exhausted and relieved, was making a decision that would change everything. And that tomorrow, when he returned home from another endless day of meetings and deals and victories that felt increasingly hollow, he would find something waiting for him on his doorstep that would shatter every wall he'd built. Sometimes the universe has a way of forcing us to face what we've been running from. Sometimes it takes something small and innocent and pure to remind us what it means to be human. For Marcus Chun, that reminder was coming, and it would arrive in the most unexpected form. A 3-year-old girl with her mother's dark eyes and a heart too big for her tiny body, kneeling in the rain, waiting for a man who didn't even know she existed. The storm was just beginning. Elena Martinez's alarm hadn't gone off, but she woke anyway at 5:15 a.m., the way she always did, trained by years of necessity to rise before the sun. In the dim light filtering through the thin curtains of her Queens apartment, she could hear her daughter, Sophia, breathing steadily in the small bed across the room. The fever had finally broken. Thank God, Elena thought, pressing her hands together in silent prayer. 3 days of watching Sophia burn with fever, of counting out dollars for medicine, of calling in sick to work and losing precious income. It had been torture. She moved quietly around the cramped studio apartment, preparing for work. The space was modest, barely 400 square feet, but Elena had made it a home. Sophia's drawings covered one wall, crayon masterpieces of flowers and butterflies, and a little girl holding hands with her mama. A small bookshelf held their precious collection of library books. In the corner, a second-hand kitchen table served as their dining area, homework space, and Elena's command center for managing their complicated life. Elena caught her reflection in the bathroom mirror as she pinned back her dark hair. 28 years old, but sometimes she felt twice that. The face looking back at her was pretty enough. Large brown eyes, smooth olive skin, high cheekbones inherited from her Mexican grandmother, but lined with the kind of exhaustion that comes from carrying the world on your shoulders. She'd been alone since before Sophia was born. Daniel, Sophia's father, had disappeared when Elena told him she was pregnant. Just vanished, leaving Elena to face single motherhood with a waitress's salary and no college degree. Her own parents had passed away in a car accident when she was 23, leaving her without a safety net. But Elena had never considered giving up. From the moment she felt Sophia kick for the first time, she knew she'd do whatever it took. She'd worked through her pregnancy, saved every penny, and when Sophia was born, had taken exactly 2 weeks off before returning to work with a baby strapped to her chest. Those early years had been brutal. Daycare costs consumed half her income. She worked 3 jobs: waitressing, cleaning offices at night, and taking any odd jobs she could find. She existed on 4 hours of sleep and lived on rice and beans so Sophia could have fresh fruit and milk. Then, 2 years ago, she'd seen an advertisement for a housekeeping position. The pay was extraordinary, more than she made from all 3 jobs combined. The catch? The employer was Marcus Chen, the billionaire tech mogul whose face appeared regularly in the news. He had a reputation for being brilliant but demanding, cold, and impossibly exacting. Elena had almost talked herself out of applying. What chance did she have? She had no formal training, no references from wealthy families, just a bone-deep determination to provide for her daughter. But she'd gone to the interview anyway, had stood in that magnificent brownstone, and listened to the property manager list requirements that seemed designed to intimidate. The house had to be spotless at all times. Mr. Chen never wanted to see staff. Everything had to be done efficiently, invisibly, perfectly. "Can you handle this?" the property manager had asked, her tone suggesting Elena couldn't. Elena had looked her straight in the eye. "I raised a baby while working 3 jobs and never missed a day. I can handle anything." She'd gotten the job. And for 2 years, she'd been the ghost in Marcus Chen's house, maintaining his home while remaining completely unseen. She'd learned his routines, his preferences, his habits. She knew he liked his coffee at exactly 6:30 a.m., that he ate dinner at 9 p.m. if he ate at all, that he worked late into the night most evenings. She'd seen the emptiness of his life in ways he probably didn't realize anyone could see. The untouched meals she prepared. The guest rooms that gathered dust. The family photos that were never displayed. The master bedroom that somehow felt lonelier than her small studio apartment ever did. Sometimes, while dusting his office, Elena would see the awards and accolades covering the walls. Entrepreneur of the Year. Forbes 30 Under 30. Time's Most Influential People. And she'd wonder, what was it all for? All this success, all this money, all this power, and he seemed more alone than anyone she'd ever known. Not that she pitied him. How could she pity someone who had everything she dreamed of for Sophia? Security, education, opportunity, a future without worry. But she did wonder about him. About how someone could have so much and somehow seem to have nothing at all. Now, as Sophia stirred in her bed, Elena's heart clenched with familiar worry. She'd already missed 3 days of work. Marcus Chen was generous with sick leave. His employment contract was actually quite fair, but Elena hated not being there. She took pride in her work, in the way she could make his cold house at least look warm, even if it never felt that way. "Mama?" Sophia's small voice called out, and Elena hurried to her side. "I'm here, baby. How do you feel?" Sophia sat up, her dark curls wild around her face. She looked so much like Elena that sometimes it was like looking at a photo of herself as a child. "My head doesn't hurt anymore." "That's wonderful, Amor." Elena pressed her lips to Sophia's forehead. "Cool. Finally cool. Are you hungry?" Sophia nodded enthusiastically, and Elena couldn't help but smile. If she was hungry, she was definitely better. While Sophia ate her breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast, a feast by their standards, Elena called her employer's property management service. "I can return to work today," she told them. Sophia's feeling better. But the day held other challenges. Sophia's daycare wouldn't take her back until she'd been fever-free for 48 hours. Elena called her neighbor, Mrs. Park, who sometimes watched Sophia in emergencies, but Mrs. Park was visiting her own daughter in Boston. Elena looked at her daughter, at the trust and love shining in those 3-year-old eyes, and made a decision that would change everything. It was risky, possibly even grounds for termination, but she had no choice. "Sophia, how would you like to come to work with Mama today? You'll have to be very, very quiet and very, very good."
Can you do that?
Sophia nodded solemnly. I'll be quiet as a mouse, Mama. A very tiny mouse. Elena packed a bag with Sophia's favorite books, crayons, and quiet toys. She dressed her daughter in her best outfit, a little pink dress that Elena had found at the thrift store, barely worn, that made Sophia look like a princess. Remember, Elena said as they rode the subway into Manhattan, Sophia's small hand clasped tightly in hers. This is Mr. Chen's house, and he's a very important man. We have to be extra respectful and extra careful. Is he nice? Sophia asked. Elena paused. Was he nice? She'd barely spoken to him in 2 years. Their interactions consisted of notes left on the counter, occasional texts about household matters, and brief encounters when he'd arrive home early and she'd quickly finish her work and slip out. He's very busy, Elena finally said. And very successful. And we're very lucky that he employs Mama. They arrived at the brownstone at 8 a.m. after Marcus had already left for work. Elena let herself in with her key, and Sophia gasped at the grand entryway. Mama, it's like a castle. Sure, remember. Quiet like a mouse. Elena set Sophia up in the small staff room off the kitchen, an area Marcus never used. She gave her daughter paper and crayons, books and a snack, and strict instructions to stay put. I have to clean the house, but I'll check on you every few minutes, okay? Sophia nodded, already absorbed in drawing a picture. Elena worked with her usual efficiency, moving through the rooms with practiced ease. She dusted the bookshelves in the library, vacuumed the Persian rugs, cleaned the already spotless kitchen. Every 15 minutes, she'd check on Sophia, who was being remarkably good, quietly playing and drawing. It wasn't until 2 p.m. that disaster struck. Elena was upstairs, changing the sheets in the master bedroom, when she heard it, a crash from downstairs, followed by Sophia's frightened cry. She ran, her heart in her throat, and found Sophia in Marcus Chen's study, surrounded by shattered glass. A valuable crystal sculpture lay in pieces on the hardwood floor. I'm sorry, Mama. Sophia was crying, a small cut on her hand. I wanted to see the pretty glass thing, and it fell. Elena's mind raced. That sculpture had been featured in Architectural Digest's spread on Marcus's home. It was probably worth more than she made in 6 months, maybe a year. She cleaned Sophia's cut, holding her daughter close while her mind spun with panic. She could replace the sculpture. She'd use her savings if she had to, though it would set her back months. But would Marcus fire her? Would he sue her? She'd violated his primary rule, stay invisible. She spent the afternoon cleaning up the broken glass, holding each piece like evidence of her failure. She left a note on the kitchen counter, her hand shaking as she wrote. Mr. Chen, I apologize profusely. I had to bring my daughter to work today due to an emergency, and she accidentally broke your crystal sculpture. I take full responsibility and will replace it. I understand if this is grounds for termination. I'm truly sorry. Elena. That evening, as she and Sophia rode the subway home, Elena held her daughter close and tried not to cry. They couldn't afford for her to lose this job. But more than that, she'd failed in her primary duty, to be invisible, to be perfect, to never cause problems. Mama, are you sad? Sophia asked, looking up with concerned eyes. A little, baby. But it's okay. We'll figure it out. We always do. Sophia reached into her small backpack and pulled out a drawing, one of her many creations from the day. I made this for the Mr. Chen man, to say sorry. Elena looked at the picture. Sophia had drawn 2 figures, a small girl and a tall man. They were holding hands. Above them, in Sophia's wobbly 3-year-old handwriting, were the words, I am sorry. Love, Sophia. Elena's eyes filled with tears. Her daughter, who had so little, wanted to give something precious to the man who had everything. That's beautiful, Amor. But Mr. Chun is a very busy man. He probably won't. Can we leave it for him? Sophia interrupted. Please, Mama? So he knows I'm really, really sorry. Elena thought about it. What harm could it do? She'd probably be fired anyway. Okay, baby. Tomorrow, we'll leave it for him. Neither of them knew that this simple gesture, a child's apology drawn in crayon, would be the first crack in Marcus Chen's carefully constructed walls. Or that the real test was yet to come, on a rainy evening 1 week later, when Sophia would make a decision that would reveal the true meaning of love to a man who'd forgotten what it felt like. Marcus Chen's week had been hell, even by his standards. The Tokyo deal had fallen through. A competitor had launched a product eerily similar to Chen Technologies' flagship software, raising questions about corporate espionage. The Senate hearing on AI regulation had turned into a public relations nightmare, with 3 senators using their time to grandstand about billionaire tech bros playing God. His board was getting nervous. His investors were demanding answers. And through it all, Marcus had worked around the clock, fighting fires, managing crises, maintaining the facade that everything was under control. He was exhausted. Not the kind of tired that sleep could fix, but the bone-deep weariness that comes from running on empty for too long. At 9 p.m. on Friday night, he finally left the office, his mind already dreading another weekend of solitude disguised as productivity. James drove him home in silence, sensing Marcus's dark mood. When they pulled up to the brownstone, Marcus dismissed him for the weekend. Take Monday off too, Marcus said. You've earned it. James looked surprised. Marcus rarely gave unexpected time off. Thank you, sir. Are you sure you're all right? I'm fine. Just tired. But he wasn't fine. As he entered his empty house, Marcus felt the weight of his isolation more acutely than ever. He loosened his tie, poured himself a scotch, and wandered into his study to check the household messages. That's when he saw a note on his desk in handwriting he didn't recognize, sitting next to a carefully taped-together crystal sculpture. His heart sank as he read Elena's apology. He looked at the repaired sculpture. Someone had painstakingly glued every piece back together. It was clearly broken, fine lines spider-webbed across the surface, but it had been restored with obvious care. Marcus's first instinct was anger. His rules had been violated. His privacy had been breached. A child had been brought into his home without permission. But as he held the sculpture, turning it in his hands, something else emerged. Underneath the pieces of tape was a small piece of paper, folded carefully. Marcus unfolded it and found himself looking at a child's drawing. 2 stick figures holding hands. I am sorry. Love, Sophia. Marcus stared at the drawing for a long time. When was the last time anyone had said love to him? When was the last time he'd received a sincere apology, not the corporate speak version designed to avoid liability? He thought about Elena, about the woman he'd barely noticed in 2 years. She'd left him that note knowing she might be fired, accepting responsibility, offering to replace something she probably couldn't afford. And she'd kept her daughter quiet and invisible all day, except for one accident. Marcus sat down heavily in his leather chair. He should be angry. He should fire her for violating his rules. But all he felt was tired. Tired of rules. Tired of perfection. Tired of living in a museum instead of a home. He picked up his phone, started to type a message to the property management company, then stopped. What would he say? Fire the housekeeper for being human? For having a child who made a mistake? Instead, he found himself doing something he never did. He Googled Elena Martinez. There wasn't much. No social media presence. No digital footprint beyond some old high school newspaper articles mentioning her on the honor roll. Marcus frowned, digging deeper, using resources most people didn't have access to. What he found made him sit back in his chair. Elena's parents had died in a car accident 5 years ago. She'd been working as a waitress when she got pregnant. No father listed on the birth certificate. She'd worked multiple jobs while caring for an infant. No college degree, no family support, no safety net. And yet she'd raised a daughter who drew pictures of apology, who knew how to say love, who'd apparently sat quietly all day because her mother needed her to. Marcus looked around his study, at the awards on the walls, the expensive furniture, the curated perfection, and felt something crack inside him. He wrote a response to Elena's note. No termination necessary. These things happen. Please let me know if your daughter needs anything for her hand. MC. Then he went to bed, but sleep wouldn't come. He kept seeing that drawing. 2 figures holding hands. Such a simple image, but it represented everything his life lacked. The next morning, Saturday, Marcus did something he hadn't done in months. He didn't work. Instead, he walked through his house really looking at it for the first time in years. Every room was perfect, spotless, beautifully appointed, and completely devoid of life. He ended up in the kitchen, where Elena had left everything organized and pristine. On the counter was a small stack of children's books. She must have forgotten them. Marcus picked one up. The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein. He opened it, started reading, and found himself unexpectedly moved by this simple story of unconditional love. When was the last time he'd read anything that wasn't a business report or contract? Marcus spent the weekend in an unusual state of reflection. He thought about his mother in Queens, whom he'd been avoiding. He thought about the childhood he'd spent running from. He thought about the empire he'd built and the person he'd become in the process. On Monday, he did something else unprecedented. He came home early, 5 p.m. instead of midnight. He wanted to see Elena, to talk to her, to apologize for being an absent employer who'd never even learned she had a daughter. But the house was empty. According to the schedule, Elena worked Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. He'd missed her. Marcus left a note. Elena, I'd like to speak with you when you have time. Nothing wrong, just want to talk. Please don't worry. Marcus Chen. It was the first time he'd signed his first name on anything work-related in years. Tuesday, he came home at 4 p.m., but again, Elena had already left. Wednesday, same story. It was as if she was avoiding him, perhaps still worried about being fired. Thursday, Marcus cleared his entire afternoon schedule. His assistant protested. There were important meetings, but Marcus was firm. At 3 p.m., he was home, waiting. At 3:30, he heard the key in the lock. Elena entered, and he could see the moment she registered his presence, the flash of fear in her eyes, the way she straightened her spine. Mr. Chen, I wasn't expecting you. She set down her bag, her hands trembling slightly. Please sit down, Marcus said, gesturing to the kitchen table. I want to talk to you. If this is about the sculpture, it's not. Marcus sat down across from her. Well, it is, but not in the way you think. Elena, I've been a terrible employer. I've worked with you for 2 years and never asked about your life. I didn't know you had a daughter. I didn't know anything about you. Elena looked confused. That's what you wanted, sir. To be invisible. I know. And I'm realizing what a horrible request that was. Marcus ran his hand through his hair. Your daughter, Sophia? She drew me a picture. An apology for breaking something that honestly didn't matter. And it made me think about what does matter. She's a good girl, Elena said softly. She felt terrible about the accident. I'm sure she is. Because she has a good mother. Marcus paused. I want to do something. I want to pay for her medical expenses from last week. The sick days you took. And I want to double your salary. Elena's eyes widened. Sir, that's not necessary. It's necessary for me. Marcus surprised himself with the honesty. I've built an empire, Elena, but I'm realizing I've forgotten how to be human. Your daughter's drawing reminded me of something I'd lost. Let me do this. Please. Elena's eyes filled with tears. I don't know what to say. Say let me get to know you both. Say you'll stop being invisible. Say you'll let this house be a home instead of a museum. They talked for an hour. Elena told him about Sophia, about her struggles, about her dreams for her daughter's future. Marcus found himself sharing things he never shared, about his own childhood, about his mother, about the loneliness of success. When Elena left that day, something had shifted. Marcus felt lighter than he had in years. But the real transformation was still to come. Because the following week, on a rainy Tuesday evening, Marcus would come home to find a 3-year-old girl kneeling on his front steps, soaked to the bone, waiting for him with a determination that would break his heart wide open. The rain started around 4 p.m. on Tuesday, a spring storm that rolled in fast and angry over Manhattan. By 5 p.m., it was a downpour, the kind that sent people scrambling for cover and emptied the streets. Elena had left work at her usual time, 4 p.m., picking up Sophia from daycare and heading home. They'd stopped at the grocery store, stretched their budget to buy ingredients for spaghetti, Sophia's favorite. Life had felt almost manageable lately, especially after her conversation with Marcus the week before. He'd been different, warmer. He'd actually asked about Sophia, had seemed genuinely interested when Elena mentioned her daughter was learning to read. He'd even left a small gift on the counter, a set of children's books with a note. For Sophia. Every child deserves a library. MC. Elena had cried over those books. Not just because they were expensive, beautiful editions, but because someone saw her daughter. Someone cared. Now, as they prepared dinner in their small apartment, Sophia chattered happily about her day at daycare. She'd made a new friend. She'd learned a new song. She was so excited about everything, her joy infectious and pure. Elena was stirring the pasta sauce when her phone rang. An unknown number. Hello. Is this Elena Martinez? An unfamiliar woman's voice, official sounding. Yes, who's calling? This is Linda Chen. I'm Marcus Chen's mother. Elena's stomach dropped. Had she done something wrong? Was this about the sculpture after all? Mrs. Chen, Please, dear, don't sound so frightened. I'm calling because I need your help. Marcus is in the hospital. Elena's heart stopped. What happened? He collapsed at work. They're saying exhaustion, possibly cardiac issues. They're running tests. Linda's voice cracked. I'm here with him now, but Elena, I need someone to go to his house. He keeps asking for something from his study. Some documents for an important deal. I can't leave him, and I don't have keys to his house. Of course, Elena said immediately. What does he need? Linda described a specific folder, blue leather, sitting on Marcus's desk. He's quite agitated about it. The doctors say he needs to rest, but he won't calm down until he has these documents. Could you possibly? I'll go right now. I'll bring them to the hospital. You're an angel. I'm texting you the hospital address now. And Elena? Thank you. My son speaks very highly of you. He does? Elena thought, but there was no time to process that. She hung up, her mind racing. Sophia was watching her with concerned eyes. Mama? What's wrong? Mr. Chun is sick, baby. Mama needs to go to his house, and then to the hospital. I need to call Mrs. Park. But Mrs. Park's phone went straight to voicemail. Elena tried her backup babysitter, but she was out of town. She looked at the clock, 5:15 p.m. The hospital was on the other side of Manhattan. In this rain, getting there and back would take hours. "Mama, I can come with you," Sophia said. "I'll be good. Remember? Quiet as a mouse." Elena looked at her daughter, at those earnest 3-year-old eyes, and made a decision. They didn't have time to find childcare. Marcus needed those documents. "Okay, baby, but we need to hurry." They caught the subway. Sophia pressed against Elena's side as the train rumbled through the tunnels. The rain had intensified, water streaming down the stairs to the platform. By the time they emerged at Marcus's stop, they were fighting through a deluge. Elena and Sophia ran the 3 blocks to the brownstone, arriving soaked and breathless. Elena unlocked the door with shaking hands, water dripping onto the marble floors she'd so carefully maintained. "Stay right here by the door," she told Sophia. "Don't move. I'll be right back." She ran upstairs to Marcus's study, found the blue folder exactly where Linda had described. She was heading back down when she heard Sophia's small voice. "Mama, the phone is ringing." Elena grabbed the house phone. It was Linda again. "Elena, I'm so sorry." False alarm. Marcus found the documents. They were in his briefcase all along. He was confused from the medication. "I'm so sorry I sent you out in this weather." Relief and frustration washed over Elena in equal measure. "It's okay. I'm just glad he's all right." "How is he doing?" "Better now that he's resting." "But Elena, there is one thing. The doctor wants him to have some personal items from home. His mother's rosary. He keeps it in his nightstand. His reading glasses. A photo album from his bookshelf. He might be here a few days, and these things comfort him. I'll gather them and bring them first thing tomorrow," Elena promised. "You're wonderful. I'll let you go. Get home safe in this storm." Elena hung up and looked at Sophia, who was shivering, her little pink dress soaked through. "Come on, baby. Let's get these things for Mr. Chin, and then we'll go home and get you warm." But as Elena gathered Marcus's personal items, she realized how wrong everything felt. She was packing things for a man who was alone in a hospital. His mother was there, yes, but where was everyone else? Where were the friends, the girlfriend, the community that should surround someone in crisis? She thought about the books Marcus had given Sophia, about their conversation the week before, about the loneliness she'd sensed in him for 2 years. And she made another decision. "Sophia, change of plans. We're going to the hospital." "To see Mr. Chin?" "Yes. Everyone needs visitors when they're sick, even billionaires." They took a cab, a luxury Elena rarely afforded, but necessary in the downpour. Sophia fell asleep against her mother's shoulder during the ride, exhausted from their adventure. At the hospital, Elena asked for Marcus Chen's room. The nurse looked skeptical. Visiting hours were nearly over, and they weren't on the approved list, but something about Elena's determined expression and Sophia's sleeping form softened her. Room 847, but only for a few minutes. Elena carried Sophia down the sterile corridors, her daughter's small body warm and heavy in her arms. She found Marcus's room, knocked softly, and pushed open the door. Linda Chin sat beside Marcus's bed. She was a small woman, in her late 50s, with Marcus's same dark hair streaked with gray. Her eyes were red from crying. Marcus was asleep, and 4 in his arm, monitors beeping softly. He looked vulnerable in a way Elena had never seen him. No expensive suit, no armor of success, just a man who'd pushed himself too hard for too long. "You came," Linda whispered, standing. "You didn't have to. I brought his things." Elena set down the bag, then hesitated. "How is he?" "They're keeping him overnight for observation." "It's not his heart. Thank God. just severe exhaustion and dehydration. The doctor says he's been running on empty for months. Linda wiped her eyes. I've been telling him to slow down, but he never listens. Elena nodded. She'd seen the signs, the untouched meals, the late nights, the weight loss, the hollowness in his eyes on the few occasions they'd made eye contact. Sophia stirred in Elena's arms. Mama? Sure, baby. We're at the hospital. Linda looked at Sophia with grandmotherly tenderness. This must be your daughter. The one who drew the beautiful picture. You know about that? Marcus told me. He keeps it in his wallet. Linda smiled. He's been different this past week. More present. I think your daughter reminded him of something important. Sophia was waking up more fully now, looking around the hospital room with wide eyes. She saw Marcus in the bed and whispered, "Is Mr. Chen going to be okay?" "Yes, sweetheart," Linda assured her. "He just needs rest." "I could make him a card," Sophia offered. "Like I did before. Cards make people feel better." Elena felt her throat tighten. "That's very sweet, baby." They stayed for only a few minutes, long enough for Linda to thank Elena profusely, for Sophia to quietly study Marcus's sleeping face, for Elena to feel the weight of his isolation even more acutely. As they were leaving, Linda caught Elena's hand. "Thank you for caring. Not just about the job, but about him. He doesn't have many people who do." On the cab ride home, Sophia asked, "Mama, why is Mr. Chen so alone? Doesn't he have family?" "He has his mother. And he has us now, in a way." "We should visit him again," Sophia said seriously. "Everyone needs friends when they're sick." The next day, Elena brought Sophia after work. Marcus was awake this time, looking better but still exhausted. His face registered surprise when he saw them. "Elena, Sophia, you didn't need to come." "Yes, we did," Sophia said firmly, approaching his bed with the fearlessness of children. "You're sick, and sick people need visitors. Mama says so." Marcus's lips twitched into something almost like a smile, the first genuine expression Elena had seen on his face in 2 years. "Is that right?"
"Yes."
"And I made you this." Sophia held up a drawing. Marcus in the hospital bed, surrounded by flowers and butterflies. "To make you feel better." Marcus took the drawing with hands that shook slightly. He stared at it for a long moment, and Elena saw his eyes grow shiny. "This is beautiful, Sophia." "Thank you." "You're welcome. Mama and I are going to visit you every day until you're better. Right, Mama?" Elena met Marcus's gaze. There was something raw in his expression, something vulnerable and real. "If Mr. Chen wants visitors, then yes. We'll come." "I'd like that," Marcus said quietly. "Very much." They did visit every day. Elena would finish work, pick up Sophia, and they'd spend 30 minutes in Marcus's hospital room. Sophia would show him her drawings, tell him about her day at daycare, ask him questions that made him laugh. Elena and Linda became allies in the campaign to make Marcus understand he needed to slow down. And Marcus, for the first time in 15 years, let people in. On the day he was discharged, Marcus insisted on taking them to dinner, nothing fancy, just a diner near the hospital. He sat across from Elena and Sophia in a booth, dressed in normal clothes instead of a suit, and he looked more relaxed than Elena had ever seen him. "I'm sorry I worried you," he said. "Both of you. You have to take care of yourself," Sophia said seriously, parroting what she'd heard her mother say. "You can't work all the time. You need playtime too." "You're absolutely right." Marcus looked at Elena. "Your daughter is very wise." "She gets it from her mother," Elena said. Something passed between them, a recognition, a connection, a beginning of something neither of them could name yet. But that was still to come. First, there would be one more test, one more moment that would reveal the depth of love and loyalty that had grown between them. And it would happen on another rainy evening, exactly 1 week after Marcus came home from the hospital. Marcus had been home from the hospital for a week, and true to his promise, he was trying to change. He left work at reasonable hours. He ate the meals Elena prepared. He even took a full weekend off, spending it with his mother in Queens for the first time in over a year. But old habits died hard. On this particular Tuesday, a crisis emerged, a security breach at Chin Technologies, a major client threatening to walk, a media firestorm brewing. Marcus found himself pulled back into the vortex, the familiar adrenaline of crisis management drowning out his recent resolutions about work-life balance. By 6 p.m., he was still at the office, juggling 3 conference calls while his team worked frantically to contain the damage. His phone buzzed with a text from Elena. "Leaving now. Lasagna in the fridge.
Please eat something. E."
He meant to respond, but another crisis erupted. The breach was worse than they'd thought. Customer data might be compromised. The stock price was plummeting. Marcus dove deeper into the emergency, losing track of time, losing track of everything except the problem at hand. At 9 p.m., his phone rang. His mother. "Marcus, where are you?" "At the office." "We have a situation." "There's always a situation." Linda's voice was sharp with worry. "You've been home from the hospital 1 week, and you're already working 12-hour days." "Mom, I can't talk right now. I'll call you tomorrow." He hung up, feeling guilty but justified. This was an emergency. This was important. This was what leaders did. He didn't know that at that exact moment, Sofia Martinez was having a conversation with her mother that would change everything. Elena had picked Sofia up from daycare and noticed immediately that something was wrong. Her daughter was quiet, withdrawn, so unlike her usual cheerful self. "What's wrong, baby?" "Nothing, Mama." But Sofia's lip trembled. It wasn't until they were home, Sofia picking at her dinner, that the truth came out. "Tommy at daycare said that people like us don't matter," Sofia said quietly. Elena's heart clenched. "What do you mean, people like us?" "People who don't have a lot of money. People whose mamas clean houses." Sofia looked up, tears in her eyes. "He said that Mr. Chin probably doesn't really care about us. That rich people only pretend to be nice to poor people." Elena pulled her daughter into her arms, rage and hurt warring in her chest. She wanted to tell Sofia that Tommy was wrong, that people's worth wasn't measured by their bank accounts, that Marcus Chun had shown them genuine kindness. But had he? A small, cynical voice whispered. Or was she just another employee, her daughter a momentary diversion for a bored billionaire? "Baby, listen to me. Your worth has nothing to do with money. You are valuable because of who you are, kind, loving, smart, brave. Don't ever let anyone tell you different." But Sofia wasn't consoled. She went to bed early, still subdued, and Elena sat alone in their small apartment, wrestling with her own doubts. The next morning, Wednesday, Sofia seemed better. She got ready for daycare with her usual energy, chattering about a drawing she wanted to make. But Elena noticed her daughter kept glancing at the books Marcus had given her, touching their covers reverently. "Mama," Sofia said as they were leaving, "can we visit Mr. Chin today?" Elena hesitated. "He's been very busy this week, baby. Maybe this weekend. But I want to tell him thank you for being nice and for being our friend." Elena's throat tightened. Friend. Such a simple word, but it meant everything to a 3-year-old who'd just been told she didn't matter. "We'll see, okay?" At work, Elena moved through Marcus's house with a heavy heart. She'd been foolish to think things had changed. Yes, he'd been kind. Yes, he'd visited with them in the hospital. But he was still a billionaire, and she was still his housekeeper. Those lines existed for a reason. She was in Marcus's study, dusting his bookshelves, when she noticed something on his desk. Sofia's drawings, both of them. The apology and the hospital get-well card. They were framed, professionally framed, in expensive frames, displayed prominently where Marcus would see them every day. Elena stood there, staring at those drawings, and felt her cynicism crack. He'd kept them. He'd framed them. They meant something to him. She left work at 4 p.m., as usual, picking up Sophia from daycare. Her daughter was bubbling with excitement. I made Mr. Chen a new picture. It's us having dinner together like we did at the restaurant. Elena looked at the drawing, stick figures around a table, smiling together. Her heart ached with a longing she couldn't name. They were walking to the subway when Sophia suddenly stopped. Mama, can we go see Mr. Chen now? Please? I really want to give him this picture. Baby, he's at work. We can't just show up. But his house is on the way. We could leave it there, like before. Elena glanced at her watch. It was 4:30 p.m. Marcus wouldn't be home for hours if his recent pattern held. They could drop by, leave the picture, and be gone before he arrived. Okay. Quick visit, then home. They took the subway to Marcus's stop, Sophia clutching her drawing. The sky was darkening, rain threatening again, but they walked quickly toward the brownstone. They were half a block away when Sophia suddenly pulled free from Elena's hand and started running. Sophia, wait. Mama, look. Mr. Chen's car. Elena's heart sank. The black Bentley was parked in front of the house. Marcus was home early, barely past 5 p.m. He'd actually listened to the doctors, to his mother, to her own gentle reminders about taking care of himself. But now they were intruding on his personal time. Elena grabbed Sophia's hand. Baby, we should go. We can come back. Please, Mama. I just want to give him the picture. I'll be fast. Before Elena could stop her, Sophia had run up the front steps and pressed the doorbell. Nothing happened. Sophia pressed it again, then knocked on the door. Elena hurried up the steps, torn between pride in her daughter's bravery and horror at the intrusion. Sophia, he might be resting. We should. The door opened, but it wasn't Marcus. It was a woman, tall, blonde, impeccably dressed, holding a glass of wine. She looked at Elena and Sophia with barely concealed disdain. Can I help you? Her tone suggested she'd rather not. Elena's mind went blank. This was Marcus's house. Who was this woman? We're looking for Mr. Chen, Elena managed. He's busy. The woman started to close the door. Wait. Sophia held up her drawing. I made him a picture. The woman glanced at it dismissively. I'll make sure he gets it. Now, if you'll excuse me. Amanda, who is it? Marcus's voice from inside. The woman, Amanda, sighed with annoyance. Just some little girl with a drawing. Marcus appeared in the doorway, and Elena saw the surprise in his eyes. He was dressed casually, jeans and a sweater, and behind him, Elena could see the house was lit with candles. The table was set. There were other people there. She could hear laughter, conversation. This was a dinner party. Marcus was entertaining, and they'd interrupted. Elena. Sophia. Marcus looked between them and Amanda. These aren't just some little girl. This is Sophia and her mother, Elena. They work for me, well, Elena does. How sweet, Amanda said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Marcus, darling, the others are waiting. Perhaps we can handle this later? Elena felt her face burn with humiliation. She pulled Sophia close. We're sorry to interrupt. Sophia just wanted. I made you a picture. Sophia pushed forward, holding it up to Marcus. It's us having dinner, like we did before. Because you're our friend. The word hung in the air. Friend. In that moment, with Amanda looking on with barely disguised contempt, with the sound of Marcus's actual friends laughing inside, the word felt impossibly naive. Marcus took the drawing, and something flickered across his face, emotion Elena couldn't read.
Thank you, Sophia.
This is beautiful. You're welcome. And I wanted to tell you that you do matter, even though Tommy says rich people don't care about us. But you do care, right? Because you're our friend. The question was so earnest, so innocent, so full of hope. Elena wanted to die. Sophia, we need to go, she said firmly. I'm sorry, Mr. Chen. We shouldn't have disturbed you. She picked Sophia up, despite her daughter's protests, and hurried down the steps. The rain had started, soft but steady. Wait, Marcus called after them, but Elena kept walking. She couldn't bear to see pity in his eyes. Or worse, the awkward realization that Sophia had read too much into his kindness. They were halfway down the block when Sophia started crying. Mama, why did we leave? I wanted to talk to Mr. Chen. He was busy, baby. He had important people there. But we're important too. You said so. Not like that, Sophia. Not in his world. Elena hailed a cab, desperate to get home, to get away from the humiliation. But as they rode through the rain, Sophia's tears turned to something else. Determination. I have to go back, Sophia announced. We're going home, baby. No, Mama. I have to tell Mr. Chen something important. Something I forgot. Sophia, no. But when they got home, as soon as Elena set her down, Sophia bolted. She ran out of their apartment building, into the rain, before Elena could stop her. Sophia. Elena ran after her, but her daughter was fast, driven by some fierce determination. She ran toward the subway, and Elena's heart stopped with terror. Sophia. Stop. A kind stranger caught Sophia just before she reached the stairs. Elena grabbed her daughter, her heart pounding. Sophia, what are you doing? You can't run away. I have to go back. Sophia was crying now, rain and tears mixing on her small face. I have to tell Mr. Chen that he matters too, that it's okay to be scared and lonely, that we love him even if he doesn't love us back. Elena stared at her daughter, this tiny human with a heart too big for her body, and something broke inside her. All her life, she taught herself to expect nothing, to want nothing beyond survival. But Sophia still believed in love, in friendship, in the goodness of people. Maybe she was right. Maybe that belief was worth fighting for. Okay, Elena said. Okay, baby, let's go back. They took the subway, both of them soaked, both of them shivering. By the time they arrived at Marcus's brownstone, it was 7 p.m. The rain was heavier now, coming down in sheets. Elena could see through the windows that the dinner party was still going on.
She couldn't do this.
She couldn't interrupt again. Sophia, maybe we should wait. But Sophia had already climbed the front steps. She rang the doorbell. Then, when no one answered immediately, she knelt down on the wet stone steps. Sophia, what are you doing? I'm waiting, Sophia said simply. Like in the story Mama read me. The little prince waited for the fox. I'll wait for Mr. Chen. Baby, you'll get sick. I'll wait. Elena's heart broke. She pulled out her phone, texted Marcus. I'm so sorry. We're outside. Sophia won't leave. She says she needs to tell you something. I understand if you're too busy. She didn't expect a response. The party was clearly important. Business associates, wealthy friends, Amanda with her wine glass and disdainful looks. Why would he interrupt all that for a 3-year-old's message? But 2 minutes later, the front door burst open. Marcus stood there, staring at Sophia kneeling in the rain. His face went white. Sophia? What are you doing? Sophia looked up at him, rain streaming down her face. I'm waiting for you. Because you're worth waiting for. And I need to tell you something. Marcus moved before Elena could stop him. He scooped Sophia up, pulling her out of the rain, holding her against his chest despite his expensive sweater getting soaked. You can't kneel in the rain, his voice cracked. You'll get sick. I had to come back, Sophia said seriously. I forgot to tell you something important. What's that? That you matter too. Not because you're rich or important.
Because you're you.
Because you're kind to Mama
And me.
Because you're our friend, even if we're not fancy enough for your other friends. Marcus's arms tightened around Sophia. Elena saw tears running down his face, actual tears from a man she'd never seen show any emotion at all. You're plenty fancy, Marcus whispered. You're the most important people in my life. Amanda appeared in the doorway, looking annoyed. Marcus, what on earth? Go home, Amanda, Marcus said without looking at her. All of you. The party's over. You can't be serious. We're in the middle of dinner. I'm completely serious. Marcus finally looked at her, and there was steel in his voice. I've spent years with people who don't matter, pretending it does. These two? They actually do matter. They're real. So please leave. Amanda stared at him, shocked, then turned and went inside. Elena heard raised voices, confusion, then the sound of people gathering their things. Marcus carried Sophia into the house, Elena following hesitantly. He didn't stop in the entryway where his guests were making their awkward departures. He carried Sophia straight to the kitchen, set her on the counter, and grabbed towels. Let's get you dry, he said gently, wrapping Sophia in a fluffy towel. You scared me. I'm sorry, Sophia said. But Mama says sometimes you have to be brave, even when it's scary. Your mama is very smart. Marcus looked at Elena, who was standing awkwardly by the door, dripping onto his marble floor. Elena, come in, please. The guests filtered out, shooting curious looks at the scene. Amanda was last, pausing at the door. You're making a mistake, Marcus. No, Marcus said quietly. I've been making mistakes for 15 years. This is me finally getting something right. When the house was empty, Marcus turned to Elena and Sophia, still wrapped in towels. I'm sorry, he said. For all of it. For Amanda's rudeness. For not realizing how my actions might look to you. For having a dinner party with people I don't even like while ignoring the people who actually care about me. You don't owe us anything, Elena said softly. Yes, I do. I owe you honesty. Marcus knelt down to Sophia's level. You asked if I care about you. Sophia, you and your mama have shown me more genuine kindness in the past month than I've received in years. You reminded me what it means to be human. So yes, I care. Very much. Sophia threw her arms around his neck. I knew it. I told Mama you were our friend. Marcus hugged her back, his eyes meeting Elena's over Sophia's small shoulder. In his gaze, Elena saw something that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. Not pity, not obligation, but genuine affection. Maybe even the beginning of love. Let me make you both dinner, Marcus said. Real dinner. Not fancy party food, just. He looked around helplessly. I don't actually know how to cook. Sophia giggled. Mama can teach you. And somehow, impossibly, they ended up in Marcus's kitchen. Marcus Chun, the billionaire who'd never cooked a meal in his life, learning to make spaghetti with Elena's guidance while Sophia sat on the counter, giving directions and encouragement. It was the beginning of something none of them could have predicted. But Sophia, wise beyond her 3 years, knew exactly what it was. We're a family now, she announced as they sat down to their imperfect, delicious meal. Marcus looked at Elena, hope and fear and love warring in his expression. Elena reached across the table and took his hand. Yeah, she said softly. I think maybe we are. Section 6. What came next? 6 months later, Marcus Chin walked through Central Park with a 3-year-old girl on his shoulders, listening to her narrate everything she saw with the boundless enthusiasm only children possess. Look, Mr. Marcus. That dog is so fluffy. Can we get a fluffy dog? Marcus laughed. We'll talk about it. That means no, Sophia said wisely, making Marcus laugh harder. Elena walked beside them, her hand loosely linked with Marcus's free hand. She still marveled at how natural this had become. The 3 of them together, a unit that had formed gradually, unexpectedly, and then suddenly seemed inevitable. The night Sophia knelt in the rain had changed everything. Marcus had canceled his meetings the next day and spent it with Elena and Sophia instead. They talked for hours about his childhood, her struggles, their fears, their hopes. They dismantled the walls between employer and employee, between billionaire and housekeeper, between two people who'd been alone for too long. It hadn't been simple. There were complications, awkward conversations, moments of doubt. Marcus's mother had been thrilled. His business associates had been scandalized. Elena's friends had worried she was making a mistake, that the class difference was too great, that she'd end up hurt. But slowly, carefully, they'd built something real. Marcus had learned to leave work at reasonable hours. He discovered that happiness didn't come from quarterly reports or stock prices, but from Sophia's laugh when he pushed her on the swings, from Elena's smile when he surprised her with flowers, from Sunday dinners with his mother, where they all squeezed around her small kitchen table. Elena had learned to accept help without feeling like she was losing her independence. Marcus had insisted on paying for Sophia's preschool at a prestigious academy. He'd wanted to do more, buy them a house, set up trust funds, but Elena had drawn firm boundaries. She'd accepted a raise that reflected her actual value, but she still worked, still maintained her own life, still taught Sophia that dignity came from self-sufficiency. They'd found a middle ground, Marcus learning that love meant respecting Elena's need to stand on her own feet, Elena learning that accepting support wasn't weakness when it came from someone who genuinely cared. The changes in Marcus were remarkable.
He smiled now, laughed,
took weekends off. He'd started a foundation focused on single mothers, hiring Elena as a consultant to ensure they were addressing real needs, not just what wealthy donors thought people needed. At work, he was still brilliant, still driven, but he'd learned balance. His employees noticed the difference. He was still demanding but more human, more likely to ask about their families, more willing to accommodate their needs. Chin Technologies was thriving, but Marcus had stopped measuring his worth by his company's success. He measured it instead by whether he'd made Sophia laugh today, whether he'd supported Elena's dreams, whether he was becoming the man his mother had always believed he could be. Now, as they walked through the park on a perfect Saturday afternoon, Marcus felt a contentment he'd never known existed. "I'm hungry," Sophia announced. "Can we get ice cream?" "We're about to have dinner," Elena protested. "Ice cream is dinner," Sophia countered. "She makes an excellent point," Marcus said solemnly. Elena swatted his arm. "Don't encourage her." But they got ice cream anyway, sitting on a bench while Sophia devoured a chocolate cone that was almost bigger than her head. "You're spoiling her," Elena said, but she was smiling. "That's my job." Marcus wiped chocolate from Sophia's chin. "Besides, she's taught me more than I've taught her. She taught me that love isn't a transaction, that vulnerability isn't weakness, that the best things in life can't be bought or earned. They can only be given freely." Elena leaned her head on his shoulder. "She's lucky to have you. I'm the lucky one." Marcus kissed the top of her head. "Both of you saved my life. You know that, right? I was so lost, so empty. I had everything and nothing. And then a 3-year-old drew me a picture and reminded me what actually matters." Sophia, oblivious to the emotion in his voice, was focused on her ice cream. But she looked up suddenly and said, "Mr. Marcus?" "Yes, Princess. Can we go home now? I want to show Grandma Linda the picture I made at school." Home. Sophia called Marcus's house, their house now home. Elena had moved in 3 months ago, after long discussions about what it meant, how they'd navigate it, how they'd maintain boundaries and respect. The brownstone that had once been a cold museum was now filled with Sophia's drawings on the refrigerator, Elena's books on the shelves, family photos on the mantel. Linda had moved into the guest house Marcus had built in the small backyard, happy to be close to her son and her adopted family. She'd become the grandmother Sophia had never known, the support Elena had lost when her own parents died. "Let's go home," Marcus agreed, lifting Sophia onto his shoulders again. They walked back through the park as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Marcus thought about the man he'd been 6 months ago, successful, wealthy, miserable. He'd had everything money could buy, and nothing that mattered. Now he had a 3-year-old who demanded bedtime stories, a woman who challenged him to be better, a mother who'd finally gotten her son back, and a home that felt like an actual home. That evening, after Sophia was asleep, Marcus and Elena sat on the back porch, watching fireflies dance in the gathering darkness. "I've been thinking," Marcus said, "about the future." Elena tensed slightly. They'd been taking things slowly, both of them wary of moving too fast. "I know we said we'd take it day by day," Marcus continued, "and I respect that. But Elena, I love you. I love Sophia. I want to build a life with both of you, officially, completely." He pulled out a small box, opened it to reveal a ring, beautiful but not ostentatious, a sapphire surrounded by small diamonds. "I'm not asking you to stop being who you are. I'm not asking you to be anything other than yourself. I'm just asking if you'll let me love you for the rest of my life. If you'll marry me and let me be Sophia's father, not just her friend. If you'll build something real with me." Elena stared at the ring, tears streaming down her face. "Marcus, I know it's complicated. I know we come from different worlds. But Sophia taught me something important. Love isn't about where you come from. It's about choosing to show up, even in the rain. It's about waiting for people because they're worth waiting for. It's about seeing people as they really are and loving them anyway." Elena laughed through her tears. "You learned all that from my 3-year-old. Your 3-year-old is very wise." Marcus's hands shook slightly. "So, what do you say? Will you marry a reformed workaholic who still sometimes forgets to eat lunch, but is trying really hard to be the man you deserve?" Elena cupped his face in her hands.
Yes.
"Because you're not perfect, and neither am I, and neither is Sophia. But together, we're something wonderful." Marcus slid the ring onto her finger, then pulled her close, kissing her with all the love and gratitude and hope he'd learned to feel again. Inside, Linda was reading Sophia a bedtime story. When she heard the happy sounds from the porch, she smiled. Her son had finally found his way home. In the months and years that followed, Marcus and Elena built a life that honored both of their pasts while creating something new. They got married in a small ceremony with only close friends and family. Sophia was the flower girl and took her duties very seriously. They had another daughter, then a son. Marcus taught Sophia to code, discovering she had an aptitude for technology that matched his own. Elena finished her college degree, then got her master's in social work, eventually running Marcus's foundation full-time. Chin Technologies continued to grow, but Marcus was no longer its prisoner. He coached Sophia's soccer team. He and Elena volunteered at homeless shelters. He became known not just as a brilliant CEO, but as a devoted father, a loving husband, a man who'd learned that success without love was just another form of poverty. The brownstone that had once echoed with emptiness now rang with laughter, arguments, family dinners, homework sessions, and bedtime stories. The study where Marcus had once worked until midnight became Sophia's art studio. The formal living room where he'd never entertained became a play space filled with toys and books and joy. And on the wall of Marcus's office, above his desk where he could see it every day, hung 3 framed drawings. The first showed a little girl and a man holding hands, with the words, "I am sorry. Love, Sophia." The second showed a hospital bed surrounded by flowers. And the third showed a family, a man, a woman, and children, with the words, "We're worth waiting for." Sometimes, when Marcus had a particularly hard day, when the pressures of running a company threatened to overwhelm him, he'd look at those drawings and remember. Remember the night a 3-year-old knelt in the rain because she believed he was worth waiting for. Remember the woman who taught him that accepting love wasn't weakness but courage. Remember the moment he'd finally understood that the best things in life weren't earned through work or bought with money. They were given freely by people who saw past his walls to the lonely man inside. 10 years after that rainy night, Sophia, now 13 and already showing signs of the remarkable woman she'd become, asked her father about those drawings. "Dad, why do you keep these?" "I was just a little kid. They're not very good." Marcus pulled her close, this daughter of his heart if not his blood, who'd saved him in ways she'd never fully understand. "They're not just drawings, Sophia. They're reminders of the day I learned what really matters. The day I stopped trying to earn love and started accepting it. The day I realized that a 3-year-old had more wisdom than all my business degrees combined. What wisdom was that? That love isn't about perfection or worthiness. It's about showing up. It's about waiting in the rain for someone because they matter to you. It's about seeing people, really seeing them and caring anyway. He kissed the top of her head. You taught me that. You and your mama saved my life. Sophia hugged him tight. You saved ours too, Dad. We were okay before, but we're better now. We're a family. Yeah, Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. We are. That night, Marcus stood on the back porch with Elena, watching their children play in the yard, Sophia teaching her younger siblings a game she'd invented, all of them laughing in the summer twilight. Do you ever regret it? Elena asked softly. Giving up the life you had before? The freedom? Marcus pulled her close. I gave up a prison and gained a home. I gave up loneliness and gained love. I gave up proving myself and gained actually becoming myself. He turned her to face him. You and Sophia didn't just change my life, Elena. You gave me a life worth living. We're all lucky, Elena said. You gave us stability and security. But more than that, you gave Sophia a father. You gave me a partner. You became the family we needed. No, Marcus corrected gently. We became the family we all needed. Together. As the stars came out and their children's laughter filled the air, Marcus Chin, once the loneliest billionaire in Manhattan, felt a peace and joy he'd never imagined possible. He'd learned the hardest and most important lesson of his life, that true wealth wasn't measured in dollars or deals, but in the love of people who saw you, really saw you, and stayed anyway. And it had all started with a little girl kneeling in the rain, waiting for a man who'd forgotten he was worth waiting for, showing him through simple, stubborn love that everyone, no matter how successful or broken, deserves to be seen, to be valued, to come home to people who care. That was the real story. Not rags to riches, but isolation to connection. Not about money saving poverty, but love saving emptiness. Not about a billionaire rescuing a maid and her daughter, but about them rescuing him. Because in the end, Marcus Chen had learned what Sophia knew at 3 years old. We're all worth waiting for. We all matter. And sometimes the smallest among us teach the most important lessons, that love isn't earned, it's given. That family isn't born, it's built. That home isn't a place, it's the people who see you in the rain and wait anyway.
The end.